Ahead of a looming Israeli ground invasion of Rafah, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and told him that not to launch a military operation in Rafah without a credible plan for ensuring the safety of 1 million people sheltering there. Well, there are also growing international concerns regarding a Rafah ground offensive. But Netanyahu is adamant and says that those who are against Israel's ground operation in Rafah, they don't really want Israel to win the war. To talk more on this, we are now being joined by Dr. Avner Cohen. He's a professor of non-proliferation and terrorism studies at Middlebury Institute. Thanks very much for taking our time and joining us here on WION, Dr. Cohen.
Good evening. Nice to talk to you.
Now, Dr. Cohen, U.S. President Joe Biden, like I mentioned, he spoke with the Israeli Prime Minister and he said that a military operation in Rafah should not happen without measures to ensure the safety of civilians. Do you see a shift in the United States of America's stance towards Israel in the ongoing war with Hamas militants?
Yes, I do. I think the Biden administration has less and less patience for Netanyahu. And I think that Netanyahu does understand that. I do think that the whole conversation about Rafah right now is to a great extent a matter of posturing on the Israeli side. I don't think that Israel is ready to go to Rafah. Israel is committed, and I think this was the promise that was given to President Biden, to create so-called free passages for the Palestinians. That's not a trivial thing. It's not easy to move hundreds of thousands of people in a short time.
Yes.
So I think it's a posturing towards the negotiation about the pause in fire, possibly towards ceasefire, in the context of a large swap. Hostages swap that is going to be discussed on Tuesday in Cairo with the head of the CIA, with the senior Qatari Egyptians. So far, Israel has not committed itself to arrive to this meeting, but I'm almost certain they will go.
Right. Dr. Cohen, you speak of how the whole idea of launching a ground offensive in Rafah by Israel is only Netanyahu's idea of posturing at the moment. But a senior Hamas leader has said that any Israeli ground offensive in Rafah will blow up the captive exchange negotiations. So at this moment, how possibly can Israel manage complete victory in the ongoing war? Number one, while eliminating Hamas, and number two, getting all the hostages back, because we've also been witnessing growing demonstrations and protest and dissent against Netanyahu back home, because they all are now demanding the hostages to be released.
Yeah. Ideally, Israel would like to finish the job, so to speak, in Gaza. This is the 5th brigade of the Hamas, but it's a light one. Yes, it is not touched yet, but the area is so full of people. Almost any action would easily cause humanitarian crisis. It would threaten the very strategic asset both for Israel and Egypt, the peace treaty.
Yes.
Even though both countries are not in love with each other, it's a strategic asset for both of them. And I think Netanyahu understands that. It would erode very significantly the support that Israel has in the West, including the United States. So I think right now it's a posturing to try to say that Israel might go to Gaza, is ready to go to Gaza, makes plans in order to push for more concessions with Hamas on Tuesday. At the present time, I think Israel does not have the forces to do that. Israel has not paved the, so to speak, the humanitarian road for people to leave the area. And the Prime Minister himself, even, he committed to President Biden to do the best not to harm civilians. And it's almost impossible under the present circumstances. So it takes time, in any case, and I think it's a posturing.
Right, Dr. Cohen, let's also talk about the humanitarian repercussions if Israel launches the ground invasion of Rafah, because we've been seeing the growing international concerns, and the aid agencies have warned that the displacement of people from Rafah to other areas, that cannot happen without the humanitarian cost of the invasion.
Well, it's easy to talk about displacing people and moving people. I think that my impression, and I was monitoring closely what's going on in Gaza, which is indeed a crisis. I think that there are many, many people who are not ready to move anywhere. I mean, they already moved once, some of them moved twice. We're talking about, Rafah population normally is about 200,000. Right now in the Rafah area, there is 1.4 million. Many of them are in the Mawasi, the area of west of Rafah. People are not goods that you can just move them, put them on trucks and move them. If people are not ready to move, it's very, very difficult to make them to move. This is not World War II. This is a situation that to make them to move, you need to persuade them to move. I think at this point it would not be easy.
Absolutely, Dr. Cohen. Just to follow up on that statement you made there, that the Gazans were earlier asked to move from the northern part of the Gaza Strip towards the southern, predominantly the Rafah area and Khan Yunis. And now they've been asked to move from that area too. Another pertinent question that arises here is that where do Gazans go from Rafah? They were, like I mentioned, they were earlier asked to evacuate from the northern part. Now they're all in the southern part, because Egypt is also not welcoming the displaced Gazans.
Exactly. For Egypt, it is a strategic threat, and that's why they make very much that if will be an effort and people go towards Egypt, that would be very, very serious matter. And the Israeli-Egyptian relationship, which are very important, very strategic, might be deeply in jeopardized. Also, roughly 50% of the structures in the whole Gaza Strip depends on what area. Some areas more, some areas a little bit less, but roughly 50% have been badly damaged and not worthwhile for living. You cannot push people to areas that they don't have a place to go. Right. Israel is not ready to make any kind of humanitarian effort to create another tent city along this highly dense area. So I think it's unrealistic, and I think that Israel understands the huge cost. And Israel already has lost a great deal in terms of sympathy in the world. So my view at the present time, I think it's a great deal of posturing to push towards, and I think that will be on Tuesday a very strong effort of the United States, of the Egyptians, of the Qataris, towards pushing the two sides into some kind of agreement towards a hostage swap.
Right, Doctor. Saudi Arabia has also warned of very serious repercussions. That is, if Rafah was stormed by the IDF, what kind of repercussions are we looking at here?
Well, as you know, last night there was an effort, successful effort, a rescue operation that Israel released two Israeli hostages from the Hamas. Yes. And they were in Rafah. Actually, Rafah is the only area that Israel does not have a control. So it was a very complex secret operation with a great deal of backup. I think a lot of the human casualties that took place last night, Israel claimed to have hit command and control of the Hamas to make the safety of that operation. The Hamas is claiming that it was some 140 citizens that were killed, as if Israel was bombing accidentally or just on civilian targets. My impression, it was very much in the context of this rescue operation that was successful. And I think that may allow Israel on Tuesday to go into some kind of concession on its own side, because the country right now is extremely delighted and exhilarated about the success of that operation.
Right, Dr. Cohen, thanks very much for taking our time and joining us here on WION.
A pleasure to talk to you. Take care.